Actually, thank you all for coming. I do appreciate it, and I'd like to thank Michael Anderson, wherever he is. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure meeting you and getting to know you a little bit.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Again, my name is Gabe Drueke. I'm a local artist. I've been working in the St. Louis area for about 25 years, give or take, mostly on the Illinois side, but there is a notable project on the St. Louis side that some of you may be familiar with that I'll get into a little bit later. But just to give you a little bit of background on myself, and let's make sure this all works. Okay, great. I grew up in Sparta, Illinois, which is about 45 minutes south of here, and the reason I'm putting the depot up here is because Sparta is probably best known for being the shooting location of the 1960s film In the Heat of the Night. And actually, beyond that, it is home to, Sparta is home to Roscoe Misselhorn, and Roscoe is a local artist that I knew as a kid. And he grew up just down the street. He was born down the street from the depot, and that was often one of his favorite subjects to draw. People would see him in Sparta all the time. My dad actually took this photograph of him. But my dad actually worked for the railroad, and the depot, I'm going to go back to that just for a second, was his office. So this closest window to us here, we would go in on Saturday mornings with my dad and chase the stray cats and run around that place. So I mean that depot has kind of got a special place in my heart, and it kind of comes back further along in my presentation here. But so anyway, moving on from Roscoe, Roscoe often gave presentations to art classes, and people in the community, just talking about his career as an artist. And Roscoe had an influence on me growing up, and you might not see it in some of these pieces, but in my earlier work, I pretty much only did black and white pencil sketch stuff, and that's because Roscoe did it. Everybody knew Roscoe in town. So we'll revisit Roscoe a few more times in the presentation, but one of my earliest memories as a kid was my mom would tape down paper to the kitchen counter, and this has probably happened to some of you here too, and she would bring on the big box of crayons, and we would just basically color for hours while she cooked dinner or cleaned or whatever, because if she didn't keep us entertained, my brothers and I, we would find some trouble for sure. So I can still remember how cold that water was, her spraying me off. My brother and I found a mud puddle. But so while my mom thought she was keeping my older brothers and I out of trouble, but she didn't realize that she was creating an artist. So having two older brothers, we were constantly jockeying for that top position on the refrigerator. So by the time I entered school, my work was a lot more advanced than the other kids my age. And when you're an artist, I mean, most of you are artists in this room. When you're an artist in school, it becomes apparent very quickly, and the teachers are pulling you out of class to do work on projects. Kids are standing behind you talking about how great you are, and hey, you're going to be an artist one of these days. And you hear that enough, and it ends up happening. I mean, you have no choice. So when moving on in school, when I got into high school, I just did local contests, worked on different things for the school. I had my own Duck Dynasty before it was popular. The local chapter of Ducks Unlimited had a cover drawing contest, and it always went to some senior art student or junior art student. When I was a freshman, I won it the first time, and we just kept on going on through the years. So it was no surprise after, to anybody that after I graduated that I was probably going to do something that was going to involve art, and not knowing what field or where I wanted to focus. I ended up going to SWIC to get the general studies out of the way. It was BAC at the time, so I had some good instructors there. Some of you may know some of the professors that were there. This was back in the 90s. Dale Threlkeld was one, and Dale had an influence on me because he in one of my early drawing classes, he said, a good work of art is giving it that 100%, but a great work of art is giving it that extra 10%. And I have used that through everything in my entire life, whether it was art or anything that I did in my life. So after SWIC, I transferred to the University of Illinois, and I actually applied for and was accepted into the graphic design program, which I didn't realize till afterwards, till about a year into the program, that they didn't really like taking transfer students. And I had one of my professors pull me aside, and he goes, that they only kept 6 or 7 transfer students out of the 180 applicants that they had. So that made me feel pretty special. I mean, I felt like, okay, I did something right. But so after U of I in '99, not only did I graduate with a double chin, I met this pretty girl and convinced her somehow to marry me. She was a graphic design student as well, and she sat next to me in class, and I decided I didn't want to leave U of I without her. So 22 and a half years later, she's still keeping me in check, and we've got these two little art critics that are both 19 and 16, and I mean, without these three, I mean, I wouldn't be standing here for sure. I mean, my wife is my biggest fan. I mean, at any moment she can tell me, you know what, shit ain't working, you got to get a job. and I would have to do it. But she is my biggest fan. She's my biggest cheerleader. And my girls, I mean, they pull no punches. I mean, so they keep it real around the house. They are both very, very artistically talented. But between my wife and I, she's got a graphic design and an art history degree, I think we've steered them clear of an art profession. But they're going to do great whatever they do. But so with a year left in the design program, I knew that graphic design wasn't for me. I didn't like the idea of sitting behind the computer for 10 to 12 hours a day, which my first job out of school, that's exactly what I did. So I only lasted 3 months as a professional graphic designer. And just like the Queen of England, since then I've worn many hats. I've had to recreate and reinvent myself several times. I've always been a hands-on person, so you know I've found myself doing a lot of construction type work in the past 25 years. I think it's important for me to actually read the list of what I've actually done, because without one of these things, I wouldn't be standing here and I wouldn't be the artist I am today. I wouldn't have gotten to do all the cool stuff that I've done. It's helped me immensely in different ways. So when I was in school, when I was growing up, I worked on farms and orchards, I mean, typical of the surrounding area in Sparta. I worked for the local newspaper designing ads before I knew how to design ads. And looking back, that was pretty horrible. I worked for a guy that owned a lot of rental properties, so I did a lot of apartment maintenance, where I did carpentry, plumbing, painting, roofing, masonry, drywall work, and many other reasons never to own rental property, which I've never owned rental property for that. I delivered, installed appliances and televisions and put together furniture and delivered those as well. I worked for an auto body repair place where I learned how to paint vehicles, which I was pretty good at it. I worked for a landscaping company where they sent me to school to learn how to build retaining walls. I installed and serviced irrigation systems, drove heavy equipment, drove trucks, tractors, you name it. I actually started my own architectural stone carving and casting company. I went too far here. So I'm reading these. I've worked for a cabinet company doing all their decorative glazing and antiquing work, and I still do that a little bit today. I was a licensed plumber for a period of time, which if you know anybody that's a plumber in Illinois, the test is not easy, and I was able to pass it on the first time. So I was an HVAC technician and an installer. And I was also, for my last big boy job, I was a pipe fitter, industrial pipe welder, power plant mechanic, and instrumentation tech. So I've done a lot of stuff. And all of them have been, I think I was supposed to hit that slide, wasn't I? All of them have had a huge effect on me in my life, a big influence. So, but one thing to keep in mind, even though I didn't do graphic design professionally for a lot of the years, even whenever I was working for other companies doing other things, I was constantly, designing either for the company I was working for, or I was doing side work, just to make ends meet. So I did a lot of logos and T-shirt designs and posters and you name it. If it was artistic in nature and I can make a buck, I'm gonna put an offer out for that. So an interesting job that. I was working at Prairie State Energy Campus, which is the coal-fired power plant in Marissa, just south of here. And they announced while I was out there that they were going to have a safety poster contest. And I was pretty sure of the 3,500 people that were working out there, nobody had any graphic design training. So after I collected my $1,000 gift card, I got to know these two folks pretty well, and they were the plant supervisor and plant superintendent, Paul Tews and Mary McLaughlin. And just like back in school, I was getting yanked out of class to come in and work on pet projects, which much to the chagrin of my coworkers, but it was pretty nice in the wintertime going in and working in a nice, conditioned office, and there's coffee on, and all my buddies are out freezing their butts off. But I got a lot of ribbon for it, but I also got to do a lot of cool stuff. This Construction Team of the Year project they put me on was a 20-page proposal for a global project put on by, it was a application essentially. They had applied a couple years previous, and they didn't get anywhere with it, and they realized they had somebody that could design it and make it look pretty and that would go to the top of the pile, and they did end up winning it. The interesting thing about this was we had already submitted it. It was coming up on Christmas, and they called me before we were going to have a couple days off for Christmas. And I said, Gabe, can you stop by the office, and Paul and Mary need to talk to you before you go home for a couple days. And I walk in there, and they're both very serious and very stern. And Paul's like, mate, he was English, and I'm not going to do his accent, but he's like, mate, he's like, we got a big problem. He's like, there is a mistake, and it's right on the front cover. And I'm like, you guys approved everything. I've been working on this thing for weeks. It's approved. I mean, I was actually upset. I was mad. And he starts grinning, and I'm like, what's going on? And she starts grinning, and he's like, I can't keep a straight face anymore. And he pulls up a white box from behind his desk, and it has that unmistakable silver Apple logo on it. And what happened was, while I was working on this project that was under a deadline, my computer died on me, my laptop. And being a graphic designer, I didn't get to go out and build the computer that I wanted, the Apple computer that I wanted. I just had to buy something off the shelf and make it work so that I could get this project out. And Paul felt really bad. And he was like, oh man, he goes, I'm really sorry that happened. He's like, and he started asking me questions. Well, what would you have on it? And I was none the wiser. He was taking notes. And they bought me a really, really, really nice computer with all the programs on it back when you had to buy the programs instead of subscribing to them. And when it died here just like 2 years ago, I took it in to see if they could, breathe some life into it. And the kid opened it up, and his eyes got real big. He goes, I have never seen a computer decked out like this. so they took care of me. I mean, not only did they allow me to come in and work, overtime and double time on their little pet projects, which, hey, that was great for me. I was a pretty high-paid graphic designer there for a time. But they did this for me. So, throughout my life, in you all as artists, you've probably had at some point in your life some special treatment, because you're doing favors for people, from an art standpoint. So anyway, move on from that. Also, while I was working for other companies, doing different things, I was doing some stone letter carving. I picked up stone letter carving at the U of I, and I had an instructor by the name of John Clark, who taught me how to do this. And this is what I call the story of the 5 Johns. So John Clark went to school out in Rhode Island School of Design. He had a professor out there by the name of John Hagenauer. And John Hagenauer worked with a man by the name of John Benson, who owned the John Stevens Workshop, who carved John F. Kennedy's headstone and memorial, and still a lot of the stuff you see out in the National Mall, it's not sandblasted. I mean, they hand carved that stuff. And actually, John Benson's son now has taken over that workshop, and and I see him all the time on Instagram, and you should look him up. It's an art. The V-cut, letter carving is just beautiful. But that business is operating out of the same. It's the longest continuously operating business in the same building in the United States, and that's been since like the late 1600s. So I mean, the building's even cool. So sometime I'm going to get out there. I'm going to have to go visit them. But I like that tie-in with going back to Kennedy and going back to having that tradition passed on to me. So I still do a little bit of this from time to time. So I taught myself to do dimensional carving. I mean, I didn't have any classes for it. I think as artists, it's just another medium. It doesn't matter if it's, potatoes. If somebody needs some art done, whatever the medium, I'm gonna be able to handle it. So I taught myself how to do the dimensional carving. This is a large bulldog that I carved from my old high school. This is a plaque that I did. They were redoing some stuff at the school, and they asked me if I would come in. It just kind of gives you an idea of how I remove all the stuff that doesn't belong and up there. So also, we're back to Roscoe once again. I believe it was 2009, the city of Sparta contacted me, and they wanted me to carve a large full-size statue of Roscoe Misselhorn. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I started putting together numbers. I gotta take it right here. So I started putting together numbers for it, and they didn't like those numbers. They're like, well, we've heard you did some bronze in college. Could you do a bronze statue? And I'm like, sure. So I gave them the price for that, and they really didn't like the price for bronze. But they really wanted me to work on it because I was, a native of Sparta and an artist that, had done a few things. And so they decided on a 18-inch statuette of Roscoe Misselhorn. And I knew when they called me and they wanted this done, I knew what picture I was going to use as, my reference material to start out with. So you can see, as in the photograph that I had up of Roscoe drawing, he was drawing the depot, and I wanted to make sure that that's what he was sitting there drawing. And the statue actually sits now in the Roscoe Misselhorn Gallery in Sparta that is in the old depot, which was my dad's office. So I don't know, there's just something there, that triangular thing that's happening that I love that. Since 2017, art has no longer been a hobby for me. I gave up doing all the other kind of work and decided this is just going to be the full-time gig from now on. I started out, marketing myself as, a stone carver again, and with that, also did some letter carving. And this is where I want to talk about the craftsmanship. My gosh. So many instructors that I've had over the years, while I was in school, and people that I've worked with, and even working in the trades. I mean, craftsmanship has always been very important to me. My family members, throughout history have, been, have all worked with their hands. I actually did a genealogy thing one time and found like my 13th great grandfather was a barrel maker. So it's definitely something that's genetic on both sides of the family. So I take a lot of pride in adding that 10% to make things, excellent, and fussing over details that most people will never see because I know that they're there. So this extends to my paintings. I'd like to make my own frames. Alex and I discussed framing our own work. It's probably not something I'm going to do forever. I can see in the future doing more paintings where I don't have the time to do to create the frames because it does take a lot of time. But to me right now, that's an extension of the work, and it really complements the pieces that I'm working on, and it's just something I like to do. So since 2017, I've done a lot of painting of signs and different stuff on local buildings, establishments. We're going to talk about Roscoe again one more time here. So it's a story of Roscoe and another local artist by the name of Jack Irwin. And Jack Irwin is the last of the old school sign painters, pinstripers. Jack picked up his talent from Roscoe. Roscoe, whenever he was teaching one of the high school classes, and 14-year-old Jack was sitting in the art class, he found out that Jack was pretty talented and could handle a brush pretty well. So at this time, and for a number of years, the state of Illinois, with some silly law, imagine that, you had to have your farm name painted on the side of a vehicle if you had a truck, and I think maybe a DOT number or something. So Roscoe wanted to focus on other things and passed all that work on to Jack. So Jack has been painting vehicles since he was 14 years old, and you can tell. He's in his 70s now, and he's still very talented. He's getting a little bit shaky, but back, I think it was 2017 into 2018, I was lucky enough to sit down with Jack because I wanted to learn this skill too, and complete that circle with me, him, and Roscoe. So Jack kind of showed me the ropes, showed me what brushes to use, paints, and what to do in certain situations, and I just kind of ran with it from there. And so this is a logo design that I created for Pete's Hard Stop in Smithton, where I live, and I actually painted it on the owner's truck where they use it for parades and whatnot. So I also paint on windows. I've done my share of sign stuff on the windows, and gold leaf. Last slide on there, I taught myself how to gold leaf, which is water gilding, which is I spent a lot of money wasting gold, but it's a beautiful process. So as a graphic designer, logos are a big part of what your work is. And I've got a love-hate relationship with logos because I'm good at it, but the reason I'm good at it is because I spend too much damn time working on them. So my thing is if somebody comes to me for a logo and I do agree to complete it for them, whether they want to pay $500, $1,000, $2,000, they're going to get the $3,000 or $5,000 logo. I mean, I'm not going to give them something that I wouldn't want to put on my own building, on my own business. So I try to steer clear from logos if at all possible. But I like I said, I do enjoy doing them, and they're kind of fun. So I purchased a drawing pad several years back, and that was something that really kind of moved me forward pretty quickly, because the drawing pad has allowed me to flush out ideas a lot faster and change color and really experiment with that. So I've done some illustration work, and you can see this piece up here. This is actually the small sample size. This was a digitally designed mural that I did for my brother's company in just north of Atlanta, Georgia. Some of you might recognize the skyline a little bit. If you were to take a drone up from my brother's office and look towards the city, I mean, that's the skyline that you would see. I spent a lot of time getting that detail right, just in case somebody, for whatever reason, would check on it. So this is actually the full-size piece. We did this in vinyl, and which is another kind of an interesting product that I've been doing some of my murals in, because it allows you to put stuff up on the wall really quickly, especially if it's inside. You don't have to worry about the sun fading it or peeling, and it can last a long time. And if somebody wants to put it somewhere else, it's already digitally designed, so we can print out another one, put it on another building. So rather than me going down and spending 2 weeks painting this for my brother in his sales office, we just did the vinyl and put it up in like 4 or 5 hours. And vinyl stretches if you've ever put it up, and that can make it really difficult to get the registration correct. So even though this is a digital illustration, most of my work starts out just traditional, it's analog with pencil and paper. Sometimes I like the pencil and paper work better than I like the finished, but we won't tell the clients that. I've got samples of this piece and the next piece. These were for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers contacted me to, they put a new Visitors Information Center at the Jerry Costello Lock and Dam down at the confluence of the Kaskaskia and Mississippi River. It's in Modoc, Illinois, and if you've never been to Modoc, Illinois, you probably would never go to Modoc, Illinois, unless you're going to Boondocks, which is the only bar, or you're going camping, because there's a little campsite right there. So it's really frustrating, because I did 4 different designs that are, I mean, you can see the size of it. I mean, I spent a lot of time on these, and they paid well for it, but to do something that you're so proud of and then so few people get to see, I was really hoping it would, materialize into other work, and it just never did. This is another piece they gave me 4 titles to work with, and that was navigation, which is the large piece up here, environmental stewardship, safety, recreation, and I also did a timeline for them. And this piece in particular, I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time researching the flora and fauna, the Kaskaskia River Basin, and these were all things that the Army Corps of Engineers deal with in that area. So I wanted to make sure that those details were legit, and that's one of the things as a designer. I don't want to just throw something out there. I want to make sure my research is valid, and that the client is going to get something that is appropriate. I've also done a lot of mural work here lately. I love doing murals. It's taxing on the body sometimes, which I'll get into in a little bit. But it's my murals. I mean, you've got a very short period of time to capture somebody's attention when they're driving by. So I mean, I use the design principles, just the high contrast, the bright colors, just the interesting juxtaposition of elements on it, and I really wanted to capture people's attention. I mean, the client wants it to capture their attention, so they'll stop in and peruse their business or partake in whatever they're offering. And so I love doing those. Some of you may know of Uncle John's Triple R Bar in Waterloo, Illinois, and they contacted me to paint one mural on the front of this building. And then a couple months later, they're like, could you do another one? So I've been repainting this thing 3 times a year for the past 3+ years now. I think I'm up to 12. But they usually they want a patriotic theme to go through the summer months, and then they've got a fall festival right across the street, the Pumpkin Fest. It's right there where the courthouse is. So I try to put something with a pumpkin in it. And then there's a Christmas scene, usually that takes it through till, back till the spring again. This is surprisingly difficult to do this. I mean, it's not a huge wall. It's about 30 feet long by maybe 10 feet tall, but there's a lot of windows. And I keep thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to reinvent this again, another time? Because you really have to worry and work around those windows and put a design up that's going to be at least understandable. It can get away from me, but I think I've done pretty good so far. So I've also done some watercolors. These next 2 slides are just kind of my ode to Roscoe. I was going to put it's kind of in his style, the way he used to do his pencil sketches, kind of with my own twist of the the high contrast, the strong light and shadow, and these would have been subjects that he would have sketched in his lifetime. So I've never finished the calendar, so hopefully one of these days I'll get back to that. These 2 paintings are watercolors I did from photographs that I took in Greece. My wife is Greek, 100%, and so I've been lucky enough to go back to Greece. Inspiring is all I can say. While I'm there, I've painted. I've done some plein air stuff there, and when I come home, I want to do more. So that's hopefully in the future when the kids are out of the house, we may be doing that more. Christmas. As an artist, you probably all know that Christmas time's a pretty big time to round out your year. The city of Waterloo has contacted me several times. I've done a lot of work for them for their Christmas setup that they do right there in the square. So these are a couple of designs that I designed them, cut them out, painted them. And they last year they put a new Santa's cottage up, and they wanted to have a creative way of showcasing the names. So I came up with these 2 little elves on the ladder that we put on the side of the house there. So just some more Christmas items. I mean, I tried to do like some ornaments or some little signs, because I mean, man, that's a good way to get some cash and carry for the Christmas holidays. And so with all this Christmas work, last year Santa found out, and he needed a new sleigh. And I got to show off my automotive painting skills, my pinstriping skills, my gilding skills, and my glazing skills. And this sleigh is gorgeous. I don't know. I can't say enough about it. The people that commissioned, well, I didn't build the sleigh, but Doug Kornheim owns Kornheim Funeral Home in Waterloo. He actually built it for his wife. She's a photographer. And she wanted to use it for a prop. They've got a real good Santa Claus that lives across the property from them that comes in, and they bring kids in and they take photos with the sleigh. So I painted on the back of this sleigh commissioned by St. Nicholas, built by Doug Kornheim, and painted by Gabe Drueke. So he was on the other side of the sleigh the day I was painting this. And he's like, oh, that's cool. He knew what I was doing. And it was, it's just a little extra that I was adding to it. And he's like, he goes, whenever you're painting, he goes, do you ever misspell stuff? And I was like, no, because it's, I'm pretty, solid on what I'm doing. I came in the next day and I misspelled his last name that I was painting when he talked to me. But I'm an artist and I'm able to fake stuff. So I actually had an N on the last, on his name instead of an M. So if you can see that M shows up just a little bit brighter than the rest of them. But you really can't tell that well unless you look close. So anyway, this brings me to my abstract work, which is why I'm standing here tonight. I met Michael at an art show in St. Louis, and so abstract is something that's very new to me. About 2 years ago, my brother contacted me, and he and his wife are a big fan of abstract work. I've always been a graphic design mind type where all my work has been very objective, where it has to look like something, it has to look like a horse, it has to be a sign that looks like this or that. And so I never thought that I had the luxury to really experiment with abstract. But he's a good paying client. I mean, as you can see, the mural. So I started dabbling with this, and I guess to make it simpler for myself, I approached it the way I approached anything else. I mean, I used the brushes that I use on the signs, so the pinstriping and the lettering brushes. I used the idea of a lot of bright colors and contrast and energy, and just to
15 minutes?
15 minutes. Oh, okay. I've only got 15 minutes. Oh, okay. I really thought I had an hour. So anyway, I'll blow through this here real quick. So my abstract work is something that I feel like it captures the essence of the work that I did in the power plants. I mean, with the piping and the wiring. Even though I'm trying to be subjective with it. I mean, when I live with these pieces for a little bit, it's like, oh wow. It's like I see some stuff happening with the energy and and what have you. So this piece, this is my piece Ignite, and this is I entered contest. Actually, it's a year to tonight. The show was last year at St. Louis Artists Guild, and I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, I thought it was good, but I had never presented it in front of anyone. It got into the show. And I had about enough of watching people from across the room look at it and point at it, and I thought they're saying horrible things, of course. And I was getting ready to leave because the anxiety was getting to me, and they announced that they were going to do awards. And they were doing awards. I've never done a show before. And my daughter starts filming, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "You're going to win." She was right. I got second place. I didn't get the first place, and she actually asked me. She goes, "So how's it feel to get second place, Dad?" So, but and that's all it takes to push forward, to that reassurance that I'm doing something right. So, I continued on with these pieces. These are some of my my Radiate series that I started early on with, and you can again see the piping and wiring. This is part of my transfer series, and it was kind of born out of the idea of coming up with my own style that felt authentic. And every artist wants to be their own movement. And the first person that saw one of these pieces said, "Man, that's great! It looks like Keith Haring's work." Great. So and ever since then, it's like any time that I show these or post them, on social media, I get that comment. But you know what? It's not too bad a company to be in. So these are a couple of pieces I've got here, and this one kind of took a figurative thing with the, that you can see in some of my my recent work. But yeah, the transfer series is interesting to me. It's kind of a push pull, the positive and the negative. The two, mainly just two colors, and actually, if you look at it closely, it moves from background to foreground. So there's kind of a tension there. So if you don't know why you think it's interesting, maybe that's it. It's gestalt. Well, let's see here. On to overuse, abuse, and neglect. That's my golden arm here. I've worked a lot of construction type jobs. I've abused myself pretty bad. So about the time I started doing experimenting with abstract work, I noticed my shoulder was bothering me really bad. Surgery was imminent. They had to relieve some tension on the nerves, and I knew I was going to be down for a little while. So I completed as many paintings as I possibly could, because I thought, well, I'm going to have some time. I need to try to promote myself as an artist, as a fine artist, and see what this abstract thing is all about. So that's what I did with in the past year, and it's easier to go through the numbers of 2023 because I felt like if I look back too quickly, I feel like man, it's just nothing but shoulder surgeries. I've had two. And that's one of the numbers. 2023 by the numbers, I've had 2 shoulder surgeries. I was able to complete 30 plus paintings, this one. I've gotten into 15 of 23 exhibitions that I've applied for. So that's 652 batting average for those of you keeping score at home. I'm not. I've won 5 awards. I've exhibited in Illinois, Missouri, Ohio, Georgia, and this Friday I will add Kansas to the list. I picked up representation by Curate by Engineering Design in St. Louis, 2 different locations. My work was selected for an inaugural edition of Laminate magazine by artist Jenny Lamb, which I can talk to you later about Jenny. She's an amazing artist, self-taught. So I was also offered my first solo show, which will take place next year, SEMO's Catapult, appropriately named Catapult Gallery, next October 4th. And I've been invited for a speaker 3 times, so this is my 3rd gig here. I've also been able to complete 2 designs for 2 more murals, only one of which I was able to paint this year, and my cousin actually helped me with this Christmas themed one, or the winter themed one here. And I designed another logo, but it was for a family member, so it's okay. So this is for my brother's new company that he started. So you know, if there's a lithium-ion fire anywhere in the United States, he's usually on it. I mean, he is like the go-to guy for these things. So. I'm going to shift gears real quick, and I promise Jay I'm moving as quickly as I can. Last spring I was asked to do my first presentation, and not being used to getting up and speaking in front of people, I do what everybody else does, and I went to YouTube and I started watching videos on public speaking, self-confidence, and I went down a rabbit hole about personal growth. And it's this personal growth part that what I found most interesting. And growth, this will probably be more relatable than me sitting up here talking about just every project that I've done. But they're growth triggers, and they're how we respond to these growth triggers. So there's 3 of them: help triggers, force triggers, and self triggers. A help trigger being somebody steps into your life and kind of nudges you in a direction that it spurs growth in your life. Force trigger is just that. It's forced upon you. It's act of God. Your house burns down. Something horrible. But you are forced to change. You are forced to do something or look at something differently. And then there's the self trigger, and that's the one of realizing that you need to make changes to move forward in your life, and putting the ball in action and making those changes. So. Help trigger. I'm going to give you an example on a help trigger. In 2003, I started my own company doing the stone carving and casting, and I had a buddy come over to the house, and he said, Gabe, he goes, you need to have your pieces in this project they're doing in St. Louis. He brought the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, circled a legal ad, and it was an open bid meeting for this project. And I was like, man, I don't know, this is a pretty big project. And he's like, I don't care, at least go and talk to the people. So I went into this open bid meeting and probably asked a bunch of dumb questions, but I did want something right. I got a lot of names, I got a lot of phone numbers, and my brother was working with me at the time, and he was my sales guy, my business guy, and he pounded on the door for 9 months until they finally decided that he wasn't going to quit calling. And the guy actually said, Steve-O, they called him Steve-O. He's like, doesn't look like you're going to quit calling this number, so we're going to get you an interview, or not an interview, but a presentation with the owners of the project. So within 15 minutes of that project or that presentation, Billy DeWitt III gave my brother and I the permission to do all the decorative stone carving for the new Busch Stadium. So the whole time I'm there, my phone is in my pocket, blowing up. It is the only prenatal visit that I missed with my wife. For my daughter wasn't expected to be born for another month, and so I called her back quickly because I was a little concerned because I'd missed this appointment. And she's like, the doctor said the baby's coming this weekend, we got to pack her bags. And I was like, well, I got some news too. so 2 days later, my daughter Pella was born, and it was a pretty good week to be Gabe Drueke. So quick trivia note on the back of the cornerstone, or what we call the cornerstone, it's the date stone. It's right there at the musical entrance on the left-hand side. I carved her name in the back of it. And that way, if they ever tear that place down, I told her, you go up there and you tell them that's yours, your name's on it. So they're going to be surprised when she's not lying. So the next year and a half, 2 years, I spent working with Billy DeWitt III, he's now the Cardinals president. He was an architecture major, so he and I kind of spoke the same language when it came to design. And about the time we thought the project was over in 2006, the Cardinals go into the World Series, so we had one more carving to do, and that was the World Championship stone. And then of course 5 years later they won it again, and I didn't have room to put the 11. So might have to come back and do that one of these days. It's a rare image of my brother doing some casting work at a facility in Florida. We did most of the casting work at a place that we had used for other projects. I did probably 85% of the casting myself. Shipped them all back up to St. Louis, and again, there were like 120 pieces that they put on the stadium initially. There's more in there now. We also used the rubber molds to create another product, a resin product, a painted product that is, something that's lighter weight, can hang on your wall. And we got Major League Baseball licensing and sold these things at the stadium and before games at different bars and craft fairs and whatnot. And probably, as the truth is told, when we checked the numbers, we made more money on the licensed product than we did on the stuff for the stadium. So all this because of a little bitty legal ad. Without this, none of that cool shit would have happened. And it's like I still drive by there this day, and I think, man, what are the chances that all because of that, that would have caused it. So it spurred the growth. The pinnacle of this project was sitting at opening day. My brother and I had, before we walked in the game, we had done an interview on Channel 11, and we had given away our web address and where you could purchase these MLB licensing products. The entire game, his phone was blowing up, buzzing, jingling, because those were sales coming through on the website. It was pretty awesome. So everything was going great until they weren't. and this comes to the force trigger, and that causes growth. And I've got two stories. They're fairly quick. When in 2007 I learned a new term, and that term was value engineering. And we had been talking to a lot of different teams at this point. People knew who we were. Nationals, Mets, Rangers, a lot of collegiate teams, a lot of minor league teams, and people were opening the door and they were putting our product in, the bids for these new stadiums or remodels or whatever they were doing at the time. And we noticed that our product kept getting removed from these pieces. So, and 2007, what's that before? 2008. So things were tanking in the economy. I didn't know any better. My brother didn't know any better. But the people that held the purse strings to these projects knew something was going on, and they were trying to cut money out of these projects. First thing that goes in schools when there's a crunch for money is art and music. So guess what? Our stuff was not functional, and it was gone. It wasn't long before my salary ran out, and I had 2 babies at home at this point. My wife wasn't working, and I had to hustle. So I ended up going to work for a plumbing company. After about a year there, barely getting by, I ended up getting into the apprenticeship program, and about 6 months after that, I got laid off because the economy hit the plumbing industry, because nobody was doing the emergency works anymore, or it was emergency only, basically. There were no remodels. There was only one thing going on at this point, and there was only one major job in the United States, and that was just happened to be in our jurisdiction of the hall that I was working out of, Belleville, and that was Prairie State Energy Campus, and they were hiring welders and heavy riggers, and I was neither one of those. I was a plumber. That's what my card said. And they offered to send us to, those apprentices that were laid off, they offered to send us to this 16-week intensive welding training course. And that was put on by Bechtel and Prairie State. And there were 3 tests that you could take at this thing. They only paid us $10 an hour. We couldn't accept our unemployment because that was going to run out anyway. So you had to try to make the right decision. So for 16 weeks, my wife and I lived on $10 an hour plus whatever we had in savings. And like I said, there were 3 tests that we could take. You only needed 1 test passed to get on the job. And I told her, there was a rumor going around that if you passed this big heavy wall flip-flop test, this 12-inch or 10-inch piece of pipe, that they would bump you up to journeyman scale. And that's like $15 an hour more than what I was making as an apprentice. And I told her, I was like, my truck needs about $3,500 worth of damage, and I'm going to set myself a goal. I go, if I can pass this test, I'm going to go out and buy myself a new truck because it's not worth fixing this thing. So I worked my butt off. In the day that I went in to take that test, I checked it. We had $306.41 in our checking account, and not much more in our savings. And 3 weeks later, I drove a brand new Chevy truck off the parking lot of the dealership. I set myself a goal. The force trigger pushed me into this. I set myself a goal, and I committed to it, and I was able to do it. So for the next 3.5 years, I worked my butt off. 6-7 days a week, 10, 12-hour shifts. It allowed us to get back on our feet. We replaced a lot of stuff that was, that needed to be replacing, trucks, cars. We even bought a new house, and it padded the savings and all that good stuff. But it came to an end, and I was lucky enough to get another job working at the other local plant, Baldwin Power Plant, which Baldwin's not a plant that is easy to work on. Let's say it's getting old. It was a good paying, horrible job. I never knew if I was going to work 8 or 16 hours a day just because of the way their overtime schedule was, and I felt like I was wasting my talent. And one night I was sitting, we had been on an outage for about 30 days straight without a day off, and I was talking to a buddy of mine. We were walking around, and he brought up, he had just turned 40, and I was getting ready to turn 40, and we were talking about what we had learned in 40 years, And he said, he goes, "You're really talented." He goes, "Look at the stuff you did, with the stadium." And he's like, "You're wasting your talent here." And I made the decision that night. I'm walking out of this place. I'm going to leave, come hell or high water. And so this comes to my second episode of Force Trigger, because I found out that wasn't my decision to make. I ended up going out in an ambulance, and a year later I had had back surgery, had my lower fusion and disc replacement. And 7 months after that, they were going to lay off 20 people, and they laid off 21. Guess who was 21? So I saw it coming, but it was good. I didn't have to make a decision. So it forced me into doing what I'm doing right now. Standing here in front of you. This comes to the last trigger, and that's the self trigger. I'm terrified of getting up in front, talking in front of people, and this is my self trigger. Is in order for me to get to where I need to be as an artist and to move on to that next level of success, I know I've got to get comfortable talking about what I do, what I've done, what I want to do, presenting projects, and it's life happens at the edge of your comfort zone. You've got to get out of that bubble, and that's what I wanted to share with you guys tonight. That's whenever I started putting this whole presentation together. That's all the really cool shit that I've done in my life has happened because of these growth triggers and my response to them. I'm going to end on a quote: "Chance favors the prepared mind." A buddy sent this to me a couple weeks ago, and chance sounds accidental, but in the dictionary definition of that is possibility of something happening. Possibility. But chance favors the prepared mind to me is if you prepare yourself, put all the big rocks in place and train up, and you will undoubtedly put yourself in positions for good shit to happen. And it's been happening to me all year long. So I'm just going to keep on doing that. So can I talk enough or more questions?
Wow.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was incredible, wasn't it? Man, what a roller coaster ride.
It is. It has been. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Some of you may have seen my post I put up, my end of the year post on Instagram and Facebook, and just reflecting on it. I wouldn't trade what I'm doing for anything. The opportunities there for success are greater than they are an achievement, or greater than they are anything else I can do. Punching a clock. I don't know. I love my life as long as my wife doesn't tell me to stop. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Any questions?
Alex.
You call it a transfer series?
Yes.
On that series, are you working those things out on paper first, or go back to the canvas?
It's. I started out working them out just live action. Just letting it happen. And what I found with that was I was overpainting a lot, and I was getting a lot of texture in places I didn't want the texture. So that's when I went back to the drawing pad, and I would work through those, and a lot of times that's just a rough idea. But I can actually I'm pretty close to what I want it to look like whenever I finish up on the drawing pad. So, but anyone else?
More questions? Anyone?
No, but now every time I drive down Smithton, I'm gonna be looking at your stuff.
Yeah, you know, the Pete's Hard Stop, you know, on the front there where it used to say
Yeah.
Meath's, that's a big reason the shoulder gave out. 3.5 hours to remove one letter. So, and it's and it was a lot of that scrubbing, and yeah, it was not good. I don't even get free beer there.
When you did the vinyl, did you do it in layers or did you print on the vinyl?
Good question. No.
I worked for a sign shop for 10 years.
Depending on what, I mean, typically, I mean, this stuff is just going to be a flat piece of vinyl. It's going to be a 4-color, you know, printed deal. But you know, if it's just a 1-color, you know, and it's going to be outside, I would rather go with a solid sheet, just because it's going to hold up better as far as color-wise. So, yeah.
Tell me about this little one, because you know, it reminds me of Vegas where you walk down the.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Fremont Street.
Good read.
Oh my God, I love that.
No, good read. This was one of my early pieces, and that's why I brought it. I brought it because it was an early piece, and I was just trying. I'm going to unplug this. And it's just trying new things and seeing what was going to happen with it. I also wanted to show the the frame too, because the frame's really nice. But it's that was part of my radiate series. I mean, I was doing a lot of walking the fields for Native American artifacts. Where I grew up, there was across the street from, or the road from where I lived, there was a large Native American settlement, and we used to go up there and look for arrowheads. And there's something very peaceful about that area. And if you look at where these tribes were, where they stayed, and everything, there's something magical about that. And so, I mean, it was inspirational for me. I mean, there's kind of a teepee kind of looking thing, going on with the landscape. I don't know. I was just kind of trying to harness that. I was trying anything I could to for that subjective, subject. Yes.
Is that acrylic?
No, I'm sorry, yes. Everything up here is acrylic that I painted, except this piece, and I actually used, on the dark blue, I used One Shot, because the One Shot cover is so good. It's in the name, One Shot. It was taking like 3 coats to get the blue to cover the orange. I wasn't going to sit through that. But, yeah.
On the radiate pieces, are you taping a lot?
No, I don't tape anything. I'm not going to say I've never taped anything, but no, none of those pieces that I recall I did any taping on. But it's just
Is it done in layers?
Yeah, I mean, if you look, and I should have brought, well, you can kind of see on this one, if you get it in the light correctly, I mean, you can see the layers below it. And I do like that build-up too. I mean, because it kind of inspires maybe the next coat or the next color. It's like, ooh, I like how that's working, and I'll accent that a little bit.
Did you get your question answered? You did? Yes. Was there anyone else? Okay. Can you pull this?
Sure can.
Take it out of here. This is for the 50-50, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna my glasses. 760205.
Ori, congratulations. She wins something, I don't really remember what it is. So,
Your money back.
very quickly, okay. Yes, you can stop that.